Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
All right, guys, welcome. So first off, welcome to Breaking Barriers.
Yeah, man.
Everybody listening, welcome back. Super excited, Chef James Avery with us today.
Yep.
So restaurateur, 2 restaurants here in Asbury Park, Bonney as well as Black Swan. Mm-hmm. You're also a consultant and help people develop and build their restaurants. So the one thing I wanted to ask you, right? So you're a father of 4.
Yes.
Married man, sorry ladies, making moves, right? So, what would be one thing that you think that people would be surprised to know about you that maybe they don't know? Because I find you very interesting, right? So you have a ton of kids, right? So you have 4 kids. I have my first one.
Yeah.
We just literally had him. I'm in the no sleep mode right now. But so you have 4 kids. You're doing all this stuff. You've been on Hell's Kitchen. You've done so many different things. Like, what's something interesting that you think that most people don't know about you that you could share with us?
I guess nothing. I'm probably a pretty boring guy, I guess. I don't know, I'm a homebody. Like we all kind of, just a normal guy. I'm a normal dad. I go to watch my kids play sports on the weekends. And
right.
I just, I've happened to have a pretty good run of my career, Mm-hmm. I've been with my wife since I met her in culinary school.
Oh, wow.
I live a very boring life. I do some exciting things, but no, I'm just kind of like, t-shirt and jeans, sweatshirt and jeans kind of guy,
So what got you your journey in becoming a chef? Mm-hmm. When did that start?
Well, I don't really have this great romantic story about how I became a chef. Really, I was a horrible student. I've always had this, strong work ethic, this desire to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
And in high school, I became, a delivery boy at a pizzeria, and I had my own DJ business, and then I went to college, and I was partying a bunch, but then I started working in restaurants, and it just kind of slowly evolved.
Right.
Again, I love food, and this might be something that would surprise people. I love being a chef through and through. I have an extensive cookbook collection. I live and breathe, the whole thing. However, I'm more entrepreneurial driven. I'm more, into building the concept, putting the finances together, designing the logo, designing the space, all of those things. I am a chef. Obviously it's part of my brand, Chef James Avery, but really. I'm restaurateur, business person, James Avery. That's what really ignites me.
Right.
But anyway, becoming a chef was more like a means to an end, right? Like that was just the pathway that I decided to take into business for myself.
Right.
And I had a knack for it,
Right. That's really cool. And so, one of the things that I think most people don't realize that are, whether, a lot of entrepreneurs are listening to this or people who want to become an entrepreneur, can you talk about, what goes into building your first restaurant, right? So let's look at this place as an example, maybe the first. But, looking at all these things on your walls, the wallpaper, the floor choice, you have beautiful, flowers all over your place. So, when it comes, and again, I think you said that you didn't actually hire an interior designer for this.
No, I didn't.
So, what, for people watching that might be like, oh, I want to start a restaurant, or, I never knew what goes into it. What goes into it?
Man, that's such a loaded question. What goes into opening a restaurant?
Right.
Every ounce of your soul and being. That's what goes into opening a restaurant.
Right.
I know a lot of really talented chefs, a lot of really talented cooks, they wouldn't be able to, put together a restaurant. And I say that because I'm not the most talented chef. I'm not the most talented cook. I am the jack of all trades. I know how to put everything together. So, for me, if you're a chef, you're an aspiring restaurateur, it always starts in my heart with the menu. I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, oh, wow, I want to do a British pub. Okay, well, what's on a British pub menu? And you just write out your menu. Say, all right, well, to execute that, what does the kitchen look like? And what equipment do I need? And then it's, okay, well, now that I'm eating this, what kind of environment do I want to be in? Then I go down this rabbit hole on Pinterest and putting all these pieces together.
Right.
And that is the part that I thoroughly enjoy. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. What fuels my mind and my soul is that. So what goes into opening a restaurant? That. Every part of you. You have to love it. You have to love right down to the tactile, to these glasses. This wasn't arbitrary. I was man, if I'm drinking a gin cocktail, how does that feel? So a lot more goes into it than I love cooking, let me just open a restaurant.
And I think the distinction between the two is so important, because I've met so many business owners, right, who are the artists, I'll call it, which means they love the food, or they love the one component of the business, which is the production part, which is like, I love pizzas, I want to make pizza, right?
Yeah.
But they don't think about the space, or they don't think about the logo, or they don't think about those other things that you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So, it's really cool to see, I guess, more of like a all-in-one, right? Jack of all trades, or what I would refer to as a unicorn, right? In the sense of like, you're bringing all these different things, and it's different because there's different parts of our brains. The left brain is analytical, data-driven, financial-driven. You're the right part who's designing, creative, and so you're doing both.
Yeah.
So it's so complex.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of what you were just saying, one of my favorite quotes, came out of Mario Batali. Now, he's fallen out of fashion. He did some things he shouldn't have done. I get all that. But I am going to mention this about the guy, which I thought was absolutely fucking brilliant, is you need to have a calculator in one hand and a cookbook in another.
Ooh,
and I have
fire.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
I love
I've like, that is like my MO.
Yeah.
I tell my chefs that. I'm like, it's not enough to be an awesome chef, and it's also not enough to be an awesome business person. Like, you have to know how to thread the needle between art and science.
Right.
And art, you need to have left and right brains, equally engaged. And I hire people. I just hired a chef who's probably 10 times more talented than me. And I have people that work for me that are way smarter when it comes to numbers than me.
Right.
But, part of me is, whatever. I don't want to really consider myself a CEO, but sure, why not?
Yeah.
Like, the visionary of this hospitality group that I'm trying to grow right now, where it's in its infancy, is knowing how to add all these things together. And I always remind myself, James, it's a cookbook in one hand, a calculator in the other. Understand the art of what you do, but also understand that it's a fucking business at the end of the day.
Yeah. What do you say, so I just want to get your reaction to this statement. It's visceral.
Sure.
So if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
Yeah, that's bullshit. That's like,
so what's your visceral to that?
It's sometimes it fucking sucks. Like, there's days I come in, I'm like, I don't want to be here right now. I could just be at home with my wife and kids. I want to be, So like, if that's what you actually think, that you're going to go to work and love it all day, every day, you're kidding yourself and you're setting yourself up for disaster. I tell people all the time, like, I want to be a chef. It looks so cool. I'm like, you want to peel fucking carrots all day long?
Right.
I don't love doing that.
Right.
But that's what being a chef is.
Right.
So yeah, I think listen, you have to, begin with the end in mind. Like, I know what I'm chasing after, and that's what fuels me.
Totally.
I mean, there's days where I don't even want to. On my days, what do you cook on your day off? Nothing. I eat tacos. I beg my wife we can order pizza. Like, I don't want. So yeah, that's my opinion about love what you do.
I had to ask you that because I have the same fucking belief. My quote on it is like, because over the years, especially we talked earlier a little bit about like the the labor market and what's out there and expectations and all these different crazy things that are expected in the world now. And I hear that so much because you see people jumping and leaving jobs so quickly because of stress or because of whatever, and it's so quick. And I heard somebody say, oh my gosh, I don't love what I do, because if I did, it wouldn't feel like work. Yeah. And I remember hearing that, and I literally stopped them immediately. And I was like, if you love what you do, you have to fight for it, and you have to claw for it, and you do everything under the fucking sun for it. Yeah. So that's going to be my new question, Rob. I'm literally going to ask that question now, because for the people who are out here really doing it, that quote is a fucking, like, it's a fairy tale. Yeah. It's not real. But there's also some really good in that. Like, I love, like, what I respect about you, like, when we had the guy on my team, Ryan, reached out and shit, and we were looking into you a little bit more. It's like, you really clawed to get to this point even now, right? Yeah. The future's obviously bright, but like where you had to go through to get to this point. Yeah. People respect people who have experience and who are calloused. If you were just some dude that had this rich family and they bought you a restaurant and you're doing pretty well, like, different story. And some people succeed there too, but like, I love your journey of like, you had to go through shit, and I think that's respectable. Thank you. Yeah, and I love that.
It definitely is, and I always tell people this, like, you got to have passion for what you do. Passion is fleeting. Yeah. Right? Totally. But a burning desire for what you want to accomplish in this life is omnipotent.
For sure.
And like, I have a desire to, for as long as I can remember, to be honest with you, is to be a CEO of my own company. And that company, I've decided, is going to be Nicely Done Hospitality. Yep. And I am going to give that my all. Right. And there's days where my passion just isn't there. It's like motivation and discipline, right? The motivation's not always there, but if you have that discipline, that desire to get to a certain level, it's going to make the minutia, the bullshit, the COVID-19s, the labor markets, the inflation, the rents, every single obstacle I've run into along the way, I'm like, it's just another thing I have to overcome to accomplish my burning desire.
Love it. And it's so true, and it's not easy. And you have a family, dude, and that's why it's like the thought of it. Like so before I started my first company, which was my agency, I literally, I was 17 years old. I was working at Ruby Tuesdays at the time in Route 9 in Howell. And, I was doing everything from busboy, and I was working around the restaurant. And the one thing I just want to say for everybody out there that I'm such a big believer in is like my first son, Johnny, when he is, old enough to work, my kids mandatory have to work in a restaurant.
Yeah.
You can manage money, multitask, you're doing, personalities. I love it. But anyway, the whole point though is like, it's this crazy like just journey of like having to, build yourself. And while I have my first kid, now I'm sitting here like not sleeping, and figuring out that whole component of it. And it's like, for you and for restaurateurs that have all that stuff going on, like I remember in the restaurant, and this is Ruby Tuesdays, I also have family up in like, I'm Portuguese, so like my whole family's from Newark. Right. So I have family who own restaurants in Newark that are Portuguese restaurants. And so like they live, that's their life. Like there's no like holidays, they're in the restaurant. Well, it doesn't stop.
That's also like that very strong, and I say this in a good way, immigrant mentality.
Totally.
Like, we are here, this is our bread and butter, this is how our entire nuclear family is built around this business,
right.
and you see that. And it's unfortunate you're not seeing that as much anymore, but
it's just different.
So
back to what I was saying though. So like for the people who are younger, right? So this message that I have is for younger people that could be getting out of college, early in their careers. One of the things that I think that really, really is tough about the labor market this day and age. When you first started, you had to go through a lot to get to where you are today, right?
Yeah.
A lot of shit I'm sure you did for free, did for nothing, really cheaply. I remember when I first started my company, I was just going around doing websites, doing, marketing, doing shit for free in the beginning because I just wanted to build a name.
Yeah.
Now you have people who want everything under the sun just to come in and work there, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to those people that to build that grit?
I really feel bad for younger people today. And again, I'm not like, I don't want to be, these kids today, I don't want to sound like grandpa. Like, listen, I want to be youthful. Like, I want to relate to them.
Right.
And be more of like a big brother than like, this generation behind me sucks.
Right.
I will say they're at a disadvantage because, TikTok, Instagram, all these things, you're making money to play video games and to do, dances, and while that's all good and fun, the world is going to need electricians. The world is going to need home builders and doctors and surgeons, and everybody just kind of thinks now like they can just make a bunch of money because they saw somebody their age on Instagram do it, and it's like, I don't think it's that they lack the work ethic. They just aren't operating under appropriate knowledge. They just they see the world now through a 4-inch screen in their hand at all times, and it's like not every 25-year-old is worth millions of dollars. Mm-mm. Not every 25-year-old has NIL deals in sports, or so. I think it's hard for them to wrap their brain around it because it's like, well, why am I going to go work for $15, $20 an hour? When I could just live this pipe dream in my mom's basement of becoming the next TikTok star. Look, I'm on Instagram, I'm on social media, I do all that stuff, but it really is just more of like I guess added thing to my persona of my At the end of the day, I do this, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing, right? Like the distraction. The other thing I think that they're up against is the paradox of choice. It's like there's so many options that you're scared to pick one, or you're scared to go down an avenue.
It's like insane.
Or like you go down an avenue, and look, I'm guilty of it. You go down an avenue, and next thing you know, like you hit an obstacle, you're like, up, derail, next road, versus like building up that grit and bandwidth and ability to keep plowing through and like whatever. So, again, they're operating under the guise, like, the misguidance of social media.
Right.
And they also are suffering from the paradox of choice.
And wanting it all instantly.
Correct.
That's the big part. The instant
it's like,
gratification.
Exactly. Like, we live in a world where everything's immediate gratification.
Totally.
Like, it's like they want to click the button, get the dopamine.
Instantly.
Click the button, win the money.
Right.
It's all like, I want it now and I want it now. And look, I get it. You have one life to live the life you want to live.
100%.
You should never be a slave. But look, man, like, this shit isn't easy.
No.
Life is hard. Work is hard. Making lots of money is hard.
Right.
Getting in shape is hard. Anything worth doing is hard to fucking do.
Totally.
And everybody just wants to be easy.
Right. Or else everybody would be doing it.
Correct.
And it wouldn't be worth it if it was so easy. Plus, also, you don't respect people who get shit easily.
Correct.
So it's like, all right, so I want to talk about these drinks. What do we have here?
Yeah, so I picked these two. These are my two favorite drinks, not just because I came up with them, but they have two really good
No
spirits.
bias.
No, I'm kidding. No, we all kind of collaborate on our drinks. But this has been a day one drink, so it's called the Paloma Up. So if you know what a Paloma is, it's
I personally don't.
Okay, so it's kind of like a margarita, but it's more of it's tequila, grapefruit soda, like Juarita's grapefruit soda.
Okay.
We wanted to doll it up a little bit, so we use fresh grapefruit juice, Aldez tequila. It's a great tequila from my friend. Check it out if you haven't had it. So grapefruit, a little lime, a little splash of Sprite at the end. So we basically took all the great things of a margarita and a Paloma and a martini and packaged it like this. It's like our number one selling item in the restaurant.
Bang.
Which is funny for a British/Irish pub.
I love it. So
tequila,
you want to try this?
No, have at it.
Okay.
And then the other one is Oxygen. Again, it's my buddy's same gin. That was just kind of an accident that I didn't even mean to pick them. But Oxygen, fabulous gin made in Spain. This is more. It's called the Europa Cup. So we're a soccer bar. We play. I
saw it play.
Yeah. And I was like, Europa Cup. That's a cool name for drink. So basically, this is if margarita went to Europe and came back. So it's instead of lemon lime juice, we use limoncello, right? It's a similar concept. We use gin, a little bit of thyme, simple syrup.
Do you recommend
salt.
having the salt first?
Yeah.
How do you do this typically?
Just bulldog it, man. Don't overcomplicate it. Just get after it. You don't have any germs, do you?
Not me.
Good. So 2 killer drinks.
Wow, they're both delicious.
Yeah, but we are a gin bar. We have a lot of whiskeys, but we try to build our drinks, very strongly around gin.
Yep.
Multiple types of gin, and obviously the beer. We do proper pours here, but
right.
Cocktail. Speaking, these two are top on the list. Yeah, man.
What is if you're on vacation with your family?
Yeah.
Right. Do you find yourself being in a restaurant with them and just looking at every detail? Like you're just like looking at the food, like what the fuck is this, or like how do because I think about myself like it's like if I'm in a certain position or if I'm looking at like a marketing or something, I always find myself like okay, but how do you find yourself when you're off the clock, so to speak, in a restaurant with your wife? What are you looking at? So
like when I'm out with my wife, like listen, man, I understand this is a fallible thing. You're dealing with humans. So I never get like, oh, I'm waiting too long for my drink or whatever. Right. But I'll be like doing this with my wife, like, what kind of plates are these? Or what kind of silverware is this? Or like,
are you seeing if it's clean?
Yes and no. Like like a dirty restaurant, I can't. I mean, even me, like I'm sitting here, like as we're doing this podcast, I'm like, what the fuck is that in that fucking corner? Did it not vacuum last night? But no, like listen. Doing this for a living, like you appreciate people so much more. You appreciate what goes into it. So like when I'm out at a restaurant, like short of you completely being rude to me and botching my meal to the point where it's unedible, I'm grateful to be out.
You're chilling. Like
I'm grateful. And the kind of restaurants I go to would surprise you. I go to like local dive bars, bar and grills. I rarely do I treat myself to go out to like some type of high-end restaurant or something like that with my wife. Again, I go to family places. Right. I tell people all the time, I'd rather go to Outback. I can get a big-ass beer. Yep. My kids trash the place and we're out the door. Get the pumpernickel bread with the honey butter. But no, I mean, when we're on vacation, like I just want to sit back and relax.
Are you a blue and onion guy?
Yes. Who's not? It's a deep-fried onion.
You gotta get it.
Deep-fried onion. It's like...
So, additionally, to that point though, right? So, when you, like, what is currently the legacy that you want to be remembered by your kids and your wife? Like, is there something that comes to top of mind for you? Because obviously you're a hardworking entrepreneur, and you're, a loving father and husband. So like, what legacy things do you think about? And I like to ask this question of fathers because I'm in this new seat now, right? And like, how do you look at that,
With my kids, go all in. Go all in on your job. Go all in on them. Go all in on their mother. I mean, it's like to the point where I tell my kids constantly how much I love their mother. I'm always grabbing her. I'm always kissing her in front of them. I go all in on my restaurants. Look, at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur, and it's very easy to think that entrepreneurs are these evil guys that are just out for themselves to make as much money as humanly possible. I'm not. I mean, ask anybody on my team. I care about them. I go all in on my restaurants, all in on my team, all in on my vendors, all in on my partners. So if I was to leave anything behind for my kids to say, what was my dad all about? Like, what do I remember my father? I would hope it would be that, my dad always went all in. He wasn't perfect.
Right.
He could be a dick sometimes. His mouth would get him into trouble, but at the end of the day, he had a big heart and he always went in all in. And he did everything he did for us.
That's beautiful, man. That's really cool. And my wife. So because I'm being this horse right now, but because I'm adjusting to the sleep thing. We went from, in the beginning when I first started my first company, like I was not sleeping, I was working the whole time, grinding that whole thing. Then I went, we went to a COVID world where I'm not traveling all the time for work. I'm just home, get more sleep, right?
Yeah.
And then boom, now I have a kid, thank God. But I think I had an hour of sleep.
Yeah.
Not last night, the night before, right? So I went into yesterday, and I do the midnight shift. Him and I are the midnight crew, right? So we're doing the bottle at night.
Graveyard shift.
I'm the graveyard shift with my son. So I'm sitting there and I'm so depleted because I was working all day, I had a million calls, doing all these different things. And my wife said something to me that was powerful, and it really made me think about what you just said. And she said, as tired as you are right now, like these are the times you can never get back.
Right.
So as tired as you are, fucking soak this up, because literally, like, you're gonna look back one day and be like, oh, I'm so happy I just pushed through and gave him that bottle.
Yep.
Because I was fighting. I was like, I'm gonna let her do it. I'm exhausted. She's like, you want me to do it? I'm like, no, you know what? I'm doing it. I gotta do it. I want to do this. I want to remember him like this. So what you just said about going all in and like showing that love to them, and like, I think that's awesome.
You, how old? You first kid, right?
Yeah, first kid.
How old?
I'm 31.
No, I'm sorry. How old your son?
So he was born December 8th last year.
Oh wow. So
you're
in it, man. Yeah, like So again, I'm on my.
I'm in the thick of it.
My wife and I unexpectedly got pregnant. Well, my wife and she got pregnant.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I never know.
You're a part of it.
Did we get pregnant? Did you
You're
get pregnant?
You're a part of it. You're a part of it.
Yeah, I had a good time. So my wife
way.
got pregnant 6 months into dating. So long story short, we have a 17-year-old daughter. We have a 10-year-old daughter. We have an 11-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old son, and a 5-year-old son. They're all ours.
So,
we're like all over the map.
Right.
And every time we've had a kid, like I get something from it, and like my wife's a saint, God bless her.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this for brownie points, babe, but really, it was very easy the first time around to let my wife kind of like, all right, like she's got it. I'm a chef. I'm working these crazy hours. Right. I need my rest. And like, I guess going back, I wish I did more graveyard shifts. Like in my mind,
Well, dude, it's tough for you, dude, because your world,
totally was.
Your world is so different than mine.
Like you're doing it right is my point.
Thank you.
You're doing it right because you're not going to have those back. And my house is like a war zone in the morning. Like it's like I'm like, holy shit! Like how is this happening right now? But my wife's like, one day it's just gonna be you and I.
Right.
And we're gonna be bored.
And you're gonna miss the shit out of this war zone.
Like the house is gonna be quiet. It's like, how many more nights can we go out to dinner? We've seen all the movies. We've rented every series.
Right.
And like you always got to kind of have that lens and look at it through.
Yeah.
So.
Which is not easy to do in the moment, but
no, it's not.
I respect what you said, dude. Thank you for that.
Yeah, totally.
So sliding on, have you ever had a situation or a restaurant that failed, or is there?
Yes.
So can you talk about that? Because one of the things about breaking barriers is that we don't want to just talk about the sexy stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Here we are, this dope restaurant. Let's and what did you so talk about? What was the craziest part of your career, and what was your takeaway from it?
Craziest part of, there's been a lot of crazy in my career, but I guess, I can talk about failure specifically, I guess 2007, 2018, I had this lofty idea to open up a place called Farmly, and it was great. People loved it, but I didn't really do enough of the modeling. I really just had a lot of hubris, and I thought, it's going to be an organic, farm to table, Boston market-esque, market, kind of build your meat. And I just went in guns blazing, no expense was, too big. It was let's do this, let's do that.
I'm sorry, time frame is 2007?
This was 2018.
Oh, 18, okay.
April. Well, yeah, we started doing it. And I was I was betting heavy on a digital customer, that online ordering was the way to go and all these things. And we opened up and it was kind of crickets. I had my select people, but
few peeps. Yeah.
You really, you got to make sure when you're doing a business that, as good of an idea as you may have, might be the best idea. Do you have enough market share? Is there enough of a unique value proposition to get enough people to support what you're trying to accomplish? And that's an exercise that I did not do. I just was a little cocky going into it, and I had my ass handed to me.
Did you?
Failed.
Failed.
I had to shut the doors. And what sucks is that I did it 6 months before COVID. And to this day, people are like, we loved Farmly. It was so good. It was so great. I'm like, well, it's not dead, it's just sleeping.
Right.
Like, I'm waiting.
It's hibernating.
I'm waiting for the phoenix to rise from the ashes. But, that was the thing I learned. Like, don't ever let hubris or, just because it's a good idea doesn't mean it should be a business.
Love that.
I took that away.
It makes me think about the calculator and the other chef thing you said.
Yeah, calculator to cookbook.
Cookbook, yeah, because I think at the end of the day, like that side of it, is really tough. I had this one example, and you know what? But what I love about that though, what I love about you, right, is that like when you put an entrepreneur in like a fucking tough situation, they typically find their way out of it, right, and move on to the next thing. Obviously, you're here. That didn't work, but you're here, and it's one of those things that like, when you look at why, like you said, there has to be electricians, there has to be the chefs, there has to be a person who's going to be doing the plumbing, whatever. But when you look at, there has to be the entrepreneurs, right? Because like when I look at how logical most people are, right? It's scary sometimes because that's how you know why most businesses fail. Because, they're like, oh, I have this idea, it's going to be great, and then when it comes time to really hit the road and put the pedal on the gas, it's like you just find yourselves in the position where it's like things get hard, things get tough, and, you're either going to, you might fail, but what are you going to do next?
Right.
And most people don't recover and just go back to like, I got to go get a job or this is not for me, I fucking failed. What advice would you give somebody right now like that's like, damn, I'm coming off that first failure or the next failure? How did you motivate yourself, James, to keep going?
I mean, it was hard. Like tears going down my face.
And you have kids at this point.
Gut-wrenching hard. Like, wow, I sucked. I wasted all these people's money. And like that's another thing too. Like, entrepreneurs, at least I can speak for myself, we tend to put the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we give ourselves the lashings when things don't go right. Like a true entrepreneur will shoulder it all. Like it's kind of like your greatest asset's also your greatest weakness. Like you take it on. I'm going to do this, and when things don't go right, it kind of like you just kind of collapse. My advice: expensive education.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nothing will teach you more about yourself than being in failure. And like that sounds so cliche and so cheesy, but it's also fucking true.
Well, 100%.
Like those things that your high school coach told you all the time. Michael Jordan's commercial about missing all these shots, and then that's what before he got his championships. Like it's all true, right?
Totally.
So, like, did you die from it? Did it kill you?
Right.
Did somebody in your family die because of it? No.
Right.
Okay. Well, I can live with anything outside of that.
Totally.
It's not easy.
Right.
You're gonna have to probably suck it up, and it's like sliding down the ladder. And I was like, fuck, now I gotta prove myself again to my investors.
Right.
I gotta come out of this thing and like prove to the community that like I'm not a shitty operator.
Right.
That, I took a gamble and I lost, but and it's like and that's, I think at the end of the day too, a lot of that is just like we all have different makeups, right?
Yeah.
Like there's people that are meant to be brain surgeons. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm dumb as shit.
You and me both.
Not a good
you
student. I only got through high school.
Yeah.
But like,
no college degree here.
I do know how to understand people, and I do know how to like put pieces together, and I do know how to like overcome hardship, and I do have that ability. So I just think entrepreneurship isn't for everybody.
Totally.
It's not. It's not.
Totally. Yeah. And for the young people out there, like, and this is probably dating myself because it's funny, most people, you obviously used to watch the show Jackass, Bam Margera and those people. So Brandon Novak's a good friend of mine. Okay. And Novak, do you know who Novak is? Okay, so he was like a skateboarder. He's a part of them.
I do.
So long story short though, like, this dude went through the ringer. Like, literally from like drug situations. He talks about his mom had a grave plot for him, like when he was in a coma for weeks. Oof. Like he went through some crazy shit, but he always talks about how his mess became his message.
Right.
And eventually people respected the fuck out of him because, dude, he was talking about times where he was literally on the street corner to get drugs and like had to do things to people to get money to get drugs that like you would never imagine.
Yeah, horror movie stuff. Yeah.
Dude, but now it's like, dude, this guy's a rock star, and it's not because he's doing drugs, he's sober, he's doing big things. But to your point, I think it's like we look at those moments of challenge time or tragedy as like it's the end. But if you have a bigger mind, if you don't give up on yourself, and I give you a lot of respect, James, because I think, one of the things that I've always said, like I'm a big investor. I have actually had to talk to you about one of the things, but I invest in this liquor company and other real estate, other areas and shit. But one of the things that I've learned over time is that, I've been a big proponent of really my own projects. I typically fund myself. Okay. And I've always been so scared of like the running and like taking people's money and like operating that way. And now I'm in this big investment with like this liquor company where, you know, we're really blowing this thing up right now, but it's the first project that I'm invested in that like has other people's money in it, right?
Yeah.
I've never operated that way before. So like if I'm buying real estate, I'm buying real estate. If I'm doing, you know, another investment, I'm doing it myself. Building my main company, I did it myself. So, you know, so what I give you so much credit for, and again, even the founders at my other company, is that like you're, like you said, you have other people's money, right? And it's like scary.
Fiduciary responsibility.
Totally, right? Yeah. But you fucking got back up, you dusted yourself off, and you fucking got to this point still.
Yeah.
Like what had to go into that? Like, was your wife like, you know, help a part of that? Like,
yeah.
Did you have mentors? Like,
yeah.
Who was around you that got you like, boom?
I mean, my partners, you know, because a lot of guys I have like mixed, you know, some guys are involved in this, they're involved in that, but I mean, like, it got to them. I mean, and again, I was like, oh, like, you can't just take failure lightheartedly either.
Right.
Like, it's supposed to fucking hurt.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like, man, I'm an idiot. How did I do? Like, you, because if it's just like, oh, well, I tried so hard, let's just get back on the horse, you know?
Yeah.
No, that's bullshit.
Totally.
Like, you fucked up.
Right.
You did something wrong.
Right.
Now what are you going to fucking do about it?
Correct.
Okay?
I love that.
And it took me 6 months of like literally crying.
Right.
Literally like, I can't believe I lost $1 million of other people's money.
Right.
I can't believe I blew an opportunity to, you know, open up 20 of these restaurants and become, you know, massively successful. And now it's like, I guess I'm going back to the Bonney with one restaurant and I don't even know, you know, what I'm going to do. And then all of a sudden they start talking about a pandemic on the news and then that happens and it was like, holy shit.
Talk about
the world, it just felt like it was falling down
at
around
once.
me.
At fucking once.
And like,
wow.
you know, and it was like some of my partners were like, James, it's okay. It's
right.
like after 6 months.
These things happen.
Yeah, they're like, you know, like forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Like, did you, like, it wasn't like I went in there and took all their money and like was funneling it to another thing or like being irresponsible. It's like, you know, we all bet heavily on this thing.
Right.
You know, I went to bat and I struck out.
Right.
Okay. Like, but you're still like,
and that's the risk
athlete.
in investing.
You're still the guy that we want in the game.
Right.
You just,
right.
So, you know, but yeah, like my biggest thing is like when you fail, like feel it.
Right.
Like own it.
Right.
Live in it.
Yep.
And then, you know, piece by piece, brick by brick, crawl out of it. Just don't stay there forever.
Right.
You know, but at the same, like, again, like don't just like brush it off your shoulder. Like, I failed, whatever. Sorry guys, tough
right.
shit. Like,
right.
No.
Yeah, that's tough. And I give you a lot of respect for that, James.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, it's not.
So I want to talk, we're getting close to the end here, but I want to talk
Sure.
about the Hell's Kitchen experience.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And before we even go into it, the question I have for you is why, so if you were to say, what is the reason why most people think that chefs can be assholes?
Because they are.
But like why? Like there's a lot of different industries, right? Like captains, you know, of boats can be kind of like very stern.
Yeah.
And it's also very hierarchical, where it's like when you're the chef in the kitchen, right? It's like you got your sous chefs, you got everybody else there under you. There's rankings, like, and I look at, you know, captaining and stuff. I'm a big boater myself.
Sure.
So it's like, why do you think in the chef world? And I'm not gonna say asshole. I was joking around by saying asshole, but you know, why do you think it's such a stern, serious, like fucking like boom, like I'm gonna fucking freak out on you, you know, like situation?
Well, I mean, that's another loaded type of question.
Sorry.
So number one, it's not like that anymore.
Right.
You know, you go in my kitchen. I mean, if I could count on one hand how many times I've had to yell at people or scream at people, you know, that's like I don't even know if I could, you know, count on one hand.
Right.
Or I'm sorry.
So you're not. It's not often that you do that.
No, because you can't anymore. Because like, you know, back in the day, you know, back when, you know, Gordan Ramsay was 25, he was working in France, and like it was just a different climate, a different world.
So different, dude. Oh
and you know, back then you had, you know, it was like, it was just militant, and it was, you know, you worked 15-hour days and 16-hour days or whatever. It was
well, people needed that job.
They
couldn't lose that job,
and it was glamorous. It was like you wanted it.
Right.
You know, it was kind of like how it is in the tech world today. You hear about stories about like people at Amazon. Like that was a very toxic place to work at the early days. Like,
for sure.
You just took it on the chin. But at the time, you know, it's a difficult job. You're in a hot kitchen. You're in a shitty environment. You know, and when you're the chef, by the time you've gotten in these old school kitchens, right? Like you've gotten to a level of proficiency in your craft that you're that much better than everybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys, like, you got to be a little messed up at that point in time. Like back then, like there was no work-life balance. It was like Marco Pierre way. Like, I'm in the kitchen all day every day. I don't have a family. I'm not shit.
Doesn't matter. This is it.
So they're you know, like, it's almost like their brains weren't like appropriate. And,
right.
And you have these guys that are just that much better. Like, and then you see somebody, they, you know, doing something stupid, you just fly off the handle. You can't do that today.
Right.
Today, it's like my first question is when I see a cook doing something I'm not happy with is who showed you how to do that? Literally,
I love that opening with a question.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, always a question, because the last thing you want to do is, but you're doing that wrong. Like, well, that's how that chef told me, or that's how he told me. Or now, so I've learned that over time too. It's like, you know, so if you're in a leadership position and you have layers of management, always ask, you know, who did that? So, but the real point of what I'm trying to say is like, you know, there's a calmer way to do it. You have to do it today, because, you know, you're not going to get anywhere. It's already a hard enough industry to employ people and staff people and grow corporate culture in a restaurant. Like, just screaming at everybody all day isn't going to work.
Right.
Back to Hell's Kitchen. Well, it's like anything. You know, he's the best of the best of the best. Right. You know, and a lot of that is like boot camp. You know, on the show, like he wants to see, can you handle the pressure? Because that's another thing. Like, it is a very on a Saturday night when you've got a line out the door, tables are sat, there's 25 steaks on the grill, pans are flying, dishwasher
fucking
flying,
wild,
humming by. It's kind of what they do to you in boot camp, right?
Yeah.
Like, they want to know that it's like a stress test.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, like, mashing on people, is really just
intentional.
Yeah, you're doing it to build character more than you are to. There's some masochistic chefs out there that just want to beat people up to beat them up. Right. I'm not one of them. Yeah. You know. Yeah. My experience on Hell's Kitchen. Listen.
Did you get screamed at? Did you get the scream?
Differently.
So what was it different?
Nobody does disappointed dad like Gordan Ramsay. You know what I mean? Like, because I wasn't a contestant on the show. I worked
you're a sous chef, right?
I had a lot of other, you know, it wasn't just a restaurant, it was a TV show. There's a lot of moving parts to that, right?
And while they're filming you in the back, there's actually you're actually serving food, right?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, yes, we're serving food. There's guests in Hell's Kitchen, the restaurant. We're serving food.
He's not just looking at the food and okay, bye. It's somebody's
not,
eating
not at all. Not at all. It's you're a restaurant. We take reservations. We go. I mean, it's not like walking down Clifton Avenue and just walking in. Like, it's a little more complex than that. But long story short, like he you know, but I and my counterpart Andy had to be so like in tune, and if we were out of sync. You know, like, you can't yell at the cooks if the fucking sous chef is fucking up. So I had to be perfect all of the time. Right. I had to be perfect. I had to be in sync with Andy, who was the sous chef in the Red Kitchen. And that was one of the, you know, people say, oh, it's a TV, blah, blah, blah. Dude, nothing ever gave me the ability to handle stress like working on that show. Really? 100%. The pressure you fuck up in a restaurant, you buy somebody dessert. You fuck up on a TV show or on the production
it's set. Forever.
You have like everybody in the like look at you like this fucking idiot. Like, you know, this guy destroyed the whole shot. This guy destroyed the whole show. This guy. So
it's not just the food; it's the production.
You know, Gordan starts yelling at somebody. The fuck, your fucking risotto's bullshit. He goes, well, that's how James showed me to do it. Now it's like, well, okay, well, we can't use that with him getting on the cook. So I had to always be perfect.
Wow. So you did get yelled at
all the time.
Wow. You know, my favorite part, I think, is when he's
also an amazing guy.
I have watched a couple of different back
amazing guy.
Yeah, but I think that one of the funniest things I've ever seen with him is when he puts the bread between the girl. He puts like, "What are you? A shit sandwich?" There's a lot
of memes. He has a lot of memes with that chef, but I can tell you, man, he does a lot with Make-A-Wish. Yeah. He does a lot. Like, my daughter went through a pretty traumatic experience, and I hit him up, and I was like, you know, I text him on his birthday every year.
Oh, nice.
Randomly, like, you know, he'll like one of my posts, or like,
that's
cool. When I post like a British food, he'll be like, you know, looks delicious. That's like the biggest like pat on my back.
Fuck yeah.
Chef likes it. Yeah. But anyway, my daughter went through a pretty traumatic experience, and I hit him up, like, chef, you know, my daughter, this happened to my daughter. I was like, you know, it would mean the world to me if you would, you know, send her like a text or something. Just, and he did this long video, like video format, and like sent it to her. And he's just, again, like, he goes above and beyond. He's not just like some chef you see screaming on TV.
That's shit that people don't know.
They don't.
Wow.
He's yeah, like, whatever. He's a good dude. So is he really an asshole? Like, no, he's not. He's actually funny as shit, and he's a good guy. And if you fuck up around him, he's going to let you know.
Dude, but you know what, though? And I think this is the hard part. Like, so there's a documentary that exists called, I don't know the name of it, but essentially it's around, like, if to be a really good leader of a brand or a company that is like a great company, to be a leader of a great company, do you have to be an asshole? So like this whole documentary was interviewing some of the biggest leaders in the world, right? From Apple to the biggest, producers of movies?
Yeah.
And the conclusion was yes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, and especially now, this is the tough part, James, now, based on what we were saying earlier, is that if you see somebody do something wrong, right, and they fuck something up royally, and it was like a lazy fuck up, right? It's like if you go in on somebody, most likely they're quitting. They're gone, right? And that's hard to find help.
Yep.
And, but when you look at like Steve Jobs, right? So like we interviewed, and there's this gentleman who was the former CIO of eBay, but also was on the early Apple team. He was on our podcast, and he was sharing how like Steve was just this insane energy and force, but like everything. He remembers one day Steve came in the room, they were working on a software, and Steve comes in and he goes, all right, let me see it. And they're like, oh, it's not ready to be seen. He goes, you have literally 3 days to show it to me. They're like, it's 3 months out. Yeah. And he goes, if I don't have it in 3 days, you're all fired. Yeah. And different days, obviously.
Yep.
But he goes, literally everybody in that room said, we cannot do this, it's impossible, but we don't want to lose this job. It's Apple, right?
Yep.
And they got it done.
Yeah.
And like we live in a different world, obviously now, right?
Like motivation's a hell of a thing, right? Like in my line of work, I don't have a lot of MBAs and people that are making six figures that work around me, right? Like it is what it is. But that Apple, exactly. You got a possibly a 7-figure job on the line. You're gonna fucking do what's got to get done.
Right.
But I think good leaders understand a couple things, right? Like one is not a popularity contest. Right. Yes, you want to be well liked, well respected, well honored by your team. But at the end of the day, you're not there. It's not a popularity contest. Right. The two main functions of a leader, but outside of setting the vision, right, is like holding people accountable and actually showing them what is fucking possible. Right. Because the average person isn't going to do what's possible unless they're forced to do it.
Totally.
And that comes with a lot of baggage. Again, it's not a popularity contest. And I always say when I have my management teams now with the management that's underneath me, it's like, if your team isn't making fun of you or kind of quoting you in parody, you're not doing your job. You're not saying the right things enough.
Right. I love that. And I think it took me a while, James, to realize that it's not a popularity contest. Because for a lot of my career, I was young, and it was like, oh, I want everyone to love me. But at the end of the day, it's about getting results. Because if they respect you, because we're moving forward, then you earned respect. It's not just being liked because you're a nice guy.
No.
All right, so we're getting close to the end here.
Yeah.
So, number one, what would be the top item food-wise if someone was to come here? What would you highly recommend as the staple to eat?
Well, obviously we have so many staples, but I'd say the thing that we probably do better than anybody, and I take a lot of pride in it, is our chicken tikka masala. It's the national dish of England. People don't realize that British food is it's kind of how America is with Italian American or Chinese food. They are with Indian food. So the national dish of England is the chicken tikka masala. We do that here.
It's good.
We do it pretty well, man.
I think most people probably don't know that. But that's really cool.
That was the cover. That was the cover. That was the dish that was on the cover of New Jersey Monthly. That is us. That is our dish. Can't get it anywhere around here, really. In this kind of environment. So.
What about Bonney?
Bonney Reed, the linguine and clams.
I love the linguine
but
and
it's
clams.
I won't do it. But it's we have just taken such a pedestrian dish and just hammered as much technique and flavor into it as we possibly can. And then it's the fucking oysters, which, again, oysters is all about procurement and how you handle them. Right. Less about, what you're doing to them.
Yeah. So my wife and I this week are for our date night. We just started doing date nights again finally.
Let's keep it up. We just started too after 17 years.
So literally, but Bonney Reed's on our list because I wanted to go for the linguine and clam. So I'm stoked you just said that. Now, lastly, so before you plug yourself in restaurants and where they can find you, if you early phase, starting my first business, I didn't have any resources, mentors. I went online and started Googling shit, quotes that could help me find some sort of motivation when it comes to pushing through and getting through challenges, right? Over the years, has there been anything, it could be a James OG, it could be, somebody from your family, but has there been a quote outside of the one chef you gave us before that really just resonates with you when you think of struggle, when you think of grit, when you think of having to get through a tough time to get to that next side? Is there anything that shows up for you?
Couple. I mean, the easiest one is when you're going through hell, don't stop and take pictures.
Well, actually, I've never heard that rendition of that.
Yeah,
I heard don't stop.
Yeah, don't stop and take pictures. Don't stop and, oh, fucking this sucks, and oh, this sucks, and this fucking
fire.
Keep going. You know?
I love that.
Yeah, keep going. And then, like, one of my favorite quotes of all time, and this is a lot about integrity and a lot about, like, what you have to become. It's like, you know, I'm going to botch this because I'm on the spot.
It's all good.
Long story short is it's like excellence isn't like an outcome. It's like an action. Like it's a habit. I'm sorry.
Love it.
You know, basically,
it's consistency.
I got to figure out what the fuck that thing is. But basically, yeah, like it's what you do all the time.
Right.
You
right.
know?
Love that.
And that to me is important. And it's like doing the right thing when nobody's looking. That's Henry Ford. You know.
Not for the shine.
Yeah, like do the right thing. Like, you know, I do it to this day. Like if you're watching my restaurant, when I'm walking by and I see a napkin or I see a piece of paper, I'm like, I bend over and pick it up because I'm like, you know what? I would have done that 20 fucking years ago.
Yep.
And I'm going to do it today. I'm not going to go find somebody. And then you'll see my staff. I'm in the room.
Yeah.
I'm just looking like shit. If he sees this and it's in my station, he's going to say something. So,
right.
But yeah, those things. Yeah. When you're going through hell, don't stop and take pictures. And,
I love that one. That might have to be the quote of this podcast. I love that one. Don't stop and take pictures. But I have one thing I have to tell you. So on Facebook, I saw you recently, and this is probably, actually no, this is I think at the end of the summertime. You were blowing like a torch with your weeds.
Oh yeah.
I know somebody who died because it blew up. So I'm just throwing that out there, not to do that potentially.
Yeah.
I know somebody who it blew up and they died.
That's crazy.
I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, well, you know what? I learned my lesson because one day I was doing it and I lit a box on fire and I'm like scared of that thing. I almost fucking.
My wife was literally because I was sitting there and I forget what I was doing, but she was like, "What the fuck is that?" I was like, "Oh, it was like it's one of this local guys, Chef, James," and he was like doing a torch cover because I follow you on Facebook. And literally, I remember she goes, "Oh my god!" She goes, "Comment and tell him about like that dude," because we know of a guy who literally blew up.
I'm freaked out. So here's the thing: I don't use glyphosate. I live a pretty much organic lifestyle.
Good, yeah.
So like Roundup, all that stuff doesn't exist in my yard.
Yeah, I don't do that either.
I have all these stones, all these fucking weeds popping up, and you just torch it. But damn, I don't want to die. So
no, somebody blew up and died. So anyway, my wife was like, "You got to tell him because it can't happen to him. He's got kids. He's a good guy."
I'll write it down.
So I told you. So now he knows. I told him, Jack. If you watch this, I told him. But all right, so this is where can people, find you? Again, let's name the restaurants. Let's name if somebody's a restaurateur that might need some assistance or might need your help. Where can find you also?
Yeah, we live in a world that's pretty much dictated by Instagram now. So my handle is simple. It's Chef James Avery. There's a famous actor named James Avery, Uncle Phil.
There is.
Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince, so he kind of.
R.I.P. Uncle Phil.
Can't Google James Avery, you'll find him, and there's a big jeweler out on the West Coast.
Right.
So
put Chef in front of it.
James Avery. I have a website. We're in the process of reworking that. But Instagram, Chef James Avery. You might be surprised what you see on there. I do a lot less food-based stuff as I do like fitness and like more my lifestyle and all that. But yeah, DM me.
I did see your little chest movements when we were moving over.
Yeah, was I doing that?
You were doing it a little bit. Sometimes it's unconscious.
Nervous twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm big into fitness. I'm big into health. Cool. That's if I could give anybody, my health has gone like this up and down my whole life. I just lost my father about a year and a half ago to some heart issues.
I'm sorry, man.
It's very easy to get caught up in work. It's very easy to overbooze. Very easy to, treat yourself badly.
Right.
You're no good to anybody around you without your health. So fucking make that your priority every day, day in, day out, and everything else will fall into place around it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, man. Time is one asset we don't get back. So you being here with us today means the world to me.
My pleasure.
And Budweiser Rob, you heard that? No boozing.
Just kidding. I didn't say no boozing.
Yeah. Thank you,
don't
guys.
do it too much.
Give them a follow. Go check out the restaurants if you're local in the New York tri-state area. Definitely come out. The restaurants are amazing. If you're in the city, it's roughly 45, 50 minutes outside the city. It's not bad. I know a lot of the people that I have, clients and friends in the city, come down to Asbury in the summertime anyway.
Yep.
So come check it out. And Chef James, thank you so much.
My pleasure, brother.
Thank you.